Our son-in-law and daughter lived in Chicago, married a few years, and we found out that our son-in-law had a spot on his tongue that was cancer. He had more surgery, and followed by uh, either by treatments, and they saw that that didn't help. So there was a baby, 10 days old. There was a boy, 2 years old. Son-in-law who was in the hospital, out of the hospital.
Welcome to Ordinary People with Extraordinary Stories. I'm Hannah Weisberg, host of this podcast. Joining me today, I'm honored to introduce you to Rabbi Chaim Kosofsky, who is a rabbi and educator who has been helping people deal with their life's challenging moments for many, many years and has recently experienced a profound loss in his own personal life. Thank you for joining us, Rabbi Kosofsky.
Thank you for having me. A pleasure to be here.
So, first of all, tell us a little about yourself, what you do, and then you could get into, I guess, the loss that you've experienced.
Well, thank you. My wife and I are Chabad Shluchim, Rabbi and Rebbetzin emissaries of the Rebbe in Springfield, Massachusetts. That's serving Western Massachusetts. And we're here for 38 years. We
Wow.
work with a wonderful team of Shluchim. Our flagship is a day school that we just had our 80th year, started by the previous Rebbe in 1945.
Oh, wow.
And
That's a very long time ago. Wow.
yes, and we're proud of that. And
Right.
we've also um, served the region with a full range of Chabad house activities.
Right. And I understand your wife is very active in the school, and that's why she couldn't even join us today. Right.
Yes, yes,
Yes.
she teaches and also has responsibilities for our outreach and for our PR and other things.
Amazing. Amazing. So, you're working hard in your school, and I'm sure you're involved with a lot of the parent body as well as the students, as well as in your shlichus. And, life is challenging as it is on shlichus for everybody, but I'm sure things are, you're seeing the fruits of your labor. And then what happens?
Um, our our son-in-law and daughter lived in Chicago, married a few years, and we found out that um, our son-in-law had a spot on his tongue that was cancer,
Mm,
and uh, the doctors felt um, that it can be taken care of. It was removed surgically, and he underwent a few weeks of radiation, and it seemed that everything was fine.
mm,
Um, and then afterwards, he went for a scan, and they saw that it had spread.
mm,
And so they had more surgery, and uh, followed by either by treatments, and they saw that that didn't help.
mm,
So he was put in touch with a doctor and was on a trial, and that worked for a few months, and then it stopped, and then things turned down rather quickly, and he passed away. Um, he passed away at the end of 2025.
mm.
For
Wow.
um, for my wife and me, we wanted to be able to support our daughter as much as we could. Our son-in-law's family lives in Chicago. They were very helpful. In fact, one of his
Mm.
brothers took off from work for a month or two to help. His sister came from Israel a number of times, and
What
she's
what was
able.
your son-in-law's name? What was his name?
Dobie Emmanuel, Dove Bear or Dobie Emmanuel.
Mhm.
And so their family is helpful, but for us to be there would support our daughter, and certainly we can do things. We can help living in the house, we're able to do things too.
Right. Wow. So what was that like for you? you have a busy shlichus here in Massachusetts. Your daughter's going through a horrific ordeal. What was that like for you and your wife?
Well, it was a it was challenging on a number of levels. Um, my wife teaches full time, and she's there almost every day. She rarely takes off, and if she does, she plans detailed work for the students
Mm,
that later gets marked.
mm,
So um, she doesn't give crossword puzzles and
mm.
fluff work. So she had to prepare work if she's not there. For us, our shluchas has always been uh, a primary spot in our lives is, and I read from the Torah every week, and
Mm.
we also, for example, both prepare the kiddush at shul. So if we're not here, it's a challenge. The when my son, around the time that he was first diagnosed with a spot on his tongue, my daughter found out she was expecting her second child.
Oh, wow. Wow.
So yes, um, and during the pregnancy, things were going okay, and then at the end of the pregnancy, things uh, turned got much worse, and that the ninth month was he was going through a difficult time. Um, and my wife knew she wanted to be there when the baby was born so she could help. Her son-in-law was not in the position to help, and um, the baby was born on a Sunday, and when my wife flew out on that Sunday, um, she stayed for a week. My daughter came home from the hospital Tuesday. On that day, my son-in-law went into the hospital for for procedure or treatment, and they decided to keep him. So he was there for a week. My daughter came home with a baby, and he wasn't home.
Oh, wow.
She was able to go with the newborn once or twice to visit him in the hospital. So my wife was there for the week. Uh, she she helped out. She took care of the older child, who at that time was two. And the following Sunday was the day before Shavuos. So
Mm,
she flew home on Sunday. We I picked her up from the airport around noon. We made a short stop at the house, and then we ran to our shul to
mm,
for a few hours to do the last minute preparations for Shavuos. Uh,
mm,
some of the cooking had been done before, but some of the setting up the room and cooking the food that would be served on Monday after
right.
the reading of the Ten
Sounds like
Commandments.
sounds like it's all on you, like on you and your wife, like so much on you. Even you have a team, but it's a lot, just the two of you doing it, hands on.
Yes. Well, yeah, things that are our responsibility we take on. Things people were helpful.
Mm,
Um, some things are easier to pitch in with, other things not. So this, yeah, we do handle a lot.
mm,
And I do want to credit my other shluchim here that were able
mm,
to pitch in and fill in for us.
for sure.
So that
Wow.
was one for Shavuos. Our younger daughter went to help the older daughter, and the day after Shavuos, I had a ticket to go to Chicago for a few days.
Hmm.
That was in the afternoon. Um, I had an interesting experience in the morning. I have a friend here who's a supporter of the school who lives about 40 minutes away. He lives and it's a rural area. He lives on a lake, and he
Mm,
also he's 5 minutes from a large area called Quabbin Reservoir. This is in Ware, Massachusetts. The name of the
hmm.
town is Ware.
Hmm.
Um, Quabbin is a man-made reservoir. It was a huge engineering project in the early first half of the 20th century, and they stopped up a river to collect water for towns and cities in eastern Massachusetts. And
Hmm.
it's a very pristine area. There are many trails. It's very peaceful. So whenever I visit my friend who lives in Ware, we take a walk, we take a hike through Quabbin Reservoir.
Hmm. Sounds beautiful.
It is. It's very peaceful. It's very quiet. You have people going by on bikes and people walking, people fishing. So I visit 3, 4 times a year, and we do this hike. And he experienced his own loss.
Mm,
When he was in college, he met a woman who had an illness, a serious illness, and they got married. He knew what he was getting into.
mm,
And throughout their marriage, um, I guess they're married, I don't know, about 15 years, maybe more or less. Um, she had bouts that she had to go to the hospital,
mm,
um, and in the end, she passed away.
mm,
Her parents were prominent people in the community and very wealthy. And he spoke to me about his experiences. And then from what he said, he told me about a meeting that he had with his father-in-law, at that time his future father-in-law. And this is a man who was an entrepreneur. He started a chain of convenience stores,
mm,
and he said, like, no one prepared. The father-in-law said, no one prepared me for a daughter who had this serious
mm,
illness. And he said, kind of we deal with what we have. We got to do the best we can. And the future father-in-law, the future son-in-law were both crying.
mm,
So my friend was telling me about this. I had told him what was going on with us. And frankly, it wasn't what I wanted to hear. I wanted to hear a
mm,
message that everything's going to be okay.
mm.
Our son-in-law's going to make it. And I didn't want to hear that there was a possibility that he couldn't, although I knew that this was possible.
Right. Wow. How did that make you feel when he was saying that?
Um, I had, I guess it gave me something to think about.
Mhm. Wow.
And I knew that this might be, but I hoped that it wouldn't.
How does one support one's child going through something like that, especially an adult child? It's one thing when you're experiencing, a difficulty on your own, a terrible tragedy on your own, but to have your child experience it, somehow there's an added layer of pain in that. And, what do you say to your child when they're experiencing it? Do you tell her to think positive? Do you tell her, like, what was your reaction to her? Did she wanna hear that? Did you wanna tell her that?
We we didn't want to say that. Um, we focused on what's practical, what we can do practically to
Mhm,
help.
mhm,
We give suggestions, and we don't tell our kids what to do much.
mhm,
We let them make their choices. If they ask, obviously we help. But now and then we give suggestions. My we but in just in practical ways. My wife, as I mentioned, is in class all day, but when she would finish class, the phone would ring soon after, and my daughter would uh, talk to her for 15 minutes, half an hour. That was one way they were able to support, and flying, flying back and forth to be with her.
mhm,
So, like I mentioned, that time after that I had that hike with my friend. So I had a flight in a few hours to Chicago.
mhm, mhm,
Our younger daughter was there, and I'm like, what am I gonna do? Can I do this?
mhm,
So there was a baby, 10 days old.
mhm,
There was a boy, 2 years old, son-in-law who was um, in the hospital, out of the hospital. So, and I remember thinking that in the taxi on the way to the house. Um, the so practical things. I got up with the 2-year-old every day. I got
mhm,
him dressed, changed his diaper, got him dressed, played with him, fed him breakfast, and and dropped him off at his daycare.
mhm,
Um, the At home every day there was something to get at Walgreens or several prescriptions. The with when someone with an illness like this, there's so much medical involved, and
Mm-hmm.
so every single day that I was there, I was at Walgreens to pick up prescriptions. Some were special prescriptions that had to be ordered and they didn't come in yet.
Mm-hmm.
So I would go back later in the day. And so, and also the person in front of you in line has some issue, so you're waiting in line for 15 minutes. Things take time. Things take time. There were there were many things coming through Amazon, people dropping things off, and just managing the stuff coming to the house, um, taking out the garbage a couple times a day, breaking up the boxes to go into recycling. That might sound small,
Mm-hmm.
but these things built up pretty fast. And
Sure.
so just being there to help to hold the baby.
So
Um,
what I'm hearing from you is that a parent, who is watching a child, God forbid, going through something like that, should just give the practical support, not the philosophical, not the emotional, but just be there in a very practical way.
yes, that's how we deal with our kids in general.
Hmm.
And
Right.
it could be other people have different experiences and different expectations.
Right. It's probably a little different than how you are dealing with people like congregants or people who come to you through difficulties. You know, because they're looking for the rabbi's perspective, not the practical so much, right?
Yes and no,
Mhm,
because uh, a lot of what we do, a lot of should speak as a rabbi.
mhm,
I feel that one of my uh, greatest things that I can do for someone, or one of the most important things of my shlichus, is not necessarily to get someone to put on tefillin or
mhm,
to get them to come to a class. It is to lift their spirits.
mhm,
And so
mhm,
my tagline is to be the sunshine in their day. I want to
mhm,
be the sunshine in people's day. And if I'm visiting people, that means they can do 90% of the talking. And I'm just
mhm,
there listening, um, nodding, affirming,
mhm,
responding in a way that shows that that I get how they feel.
mhm,
If someone says to me, if I say something and they say yes, I feel like I've succeeded. I feel it's the best thing. So I have a persona that I try to keep up, and I do that also through humor.
mhm,
But I try to lift people's feelings. A lot of it has to do with listening. Um, with our daughter, it was and son-in-law. There's listening.
mhm,
There was listening if she was willing to talk.
mhm,
But a lot, we did not get involved in the medical issues.
mhm,
Our son-in-law's family was dealing with that. Our daughter was dealing with that. She could be on the phone for half an hour or more, talking to the
mhm,
doctors and getting all the information. I think she kept a notebook, but there's a lot of different issues. There's a lot of different side effects for which a person needs to see the other doctor, this doctor. Yeah, it's not just the cancer that you're dealing with.
Right, for sure. Wow. So what I'm hearing is really like a lot of boundaries. An adult child knows what they're doing, and you don't mix into what they're doing. You're there for when they need you, when they want your support. You're there in a practical way to help, but you're also respecting her decisions as an adult, and allowing her to set up those boundaries as she sees fit. Is that what you're trying to say?
Yes, yes, we
Yeah.
are.
Yeah.
We don't do much we do very little of advice unless our children
Right.
ask. We respect their choices and their decisions, and on rare occasions will suggest something with great caution, with very
Right.
careful to do
Wow.
that.
Wow. So you mentioned you're the sunshine, you like to bring out you have the persona of being the sunshine to others. So I'm wondering how, as the sunshine rabbi or being the sunshine to others, did that put a lot of pressure on you when you did experience your son-in-law's untimely passing?
I remember being in the supermarket. I like to smile at people, especially the people who work there. They see me every week, and I know them. If they make eye contact, I say hi to them. And I remember thinking, how can I do that? How can I do this now? It was
Mm,
very, it was, if I did it, it was just on my face, and I didn't have any feeling inside. The classes that I give, people knew what was going on, and I was in many ways shut down inside. But
mhm,
I forced myself to go through with the class, and to
mm,
and to teach and to respond. Um,
mm.
and so for the class, I guess most knew, the people at Shul were knew I was going through, and they, respected that and offered support.
Did you need time to grieve yourself? Did you take that time?
Um, we we were both the last when things turned really bad, the last month or two. My wife and I were actually flying to Chicago, taking turns. We flew a bunch. It's only a 2-hour flight from our airport,
Mm,
maybe even a little less, sometimes a little more. Actually, I'm saying, from takeoff to landing is
right.
about 2 hours, and all of our throughout the time, our tickets were mostly made one one day in advance. Like
Mm,
we would figure out when's good.
like
Okay,
last minute. Right.
last minute tickets, and for some we were able to use mileage. People gave us mileage, and for others we paid, and those
Mhm,
weren't cheap.
mhm,
And then when we're at our daughter in Chicago, so she sends us to the supermarket with a grocery list. So, we pay for that, and it's taxis,
mm,
and then I'll make sure her car is filled with gas.
mm,
So um, there were expenses we were happy to be able to do.
mhm,
The last few weeks, we actually took turns flying on Sunday. One of us would fly there, and the other one would fly home. So
mm.
we made our
Someone
tickets.
was always there.
My, yes, yeah. So
Mhm,
we made our tickets that um, like one of us would fly out Sunday morning, the other one would fly back and leave the car in the parking lot here, and give
mm.
over the key with the little parking ticket, and the
Wow.
other one would fly. Would obviously we were in touch the entire week, but we'd see each other for a few hours, and
Right.
be able to talk face to face, and then the other one would leave. And
Wow.
yeah, I mean, there were times. Um, I mentioned that my wife and I both make the kiddush, things that she does, things that I do. There were times she was in Chicago and I'd be here Friday in the kitchen at our school, and she'd walk me through making the salad dressing and telling me what to put in, the mayonnaise
Right.
and the honey, and she'd say, "Let me see the bowl." And I'm
Right.
wearing gloves, and I have to hold up the camera so she could see the color in the bowl to know if I put
Well,
enough
you
honey.
you said she's very hands-on. She likes to make sure things go properly.
Yeah,
Right.
well, I wouldn't be able to do it
Yeah.
myself.
Right.
And then, one time my phone got splattered with mayonnaise.
Right. Wow.
So that was just some of the experiences that we had. And so we
Right.
were flying back and forth. So one of us was there, and
Mm.
taking being able to go to the um to the hospital or to the nursing home to spend some time, and then come home and babysit, so that our daughter would be able to go for a few hours.
How long of a period of a time was your son-in-law not well?
The entire the when it came back, that was uh, about 10 months or so.
Wow. Wow.
So
Can you tell us a little about him? I know he was very involved with the community there.
we know him as a family member, as
Mm,
a wonderful husband, to our daughter, as a good father. And I want to mention it's not just a spouse or a husband, it's a life partner. It's someone who
Mm,
calls you during the day and says, "How are you doing?" It's someone that you want to share what your things that happened to you that you're waiting to share with. It's just a real life partner.
mm,
And I knew that he was very popular in the shul. He was young. He was just turning 31 when he passed.
mm.
And yet he had a leadership role in his shul in the Bnei Reuben Shul, Rabbi Herzl Shul in Chicago, and
Sure,
in the
sure.
community. Um, my parents were members of the shul for many, many years. So it was very this aspect of my kids living in the neighborhood where I grew up was very personal. In fact,
Mm.
um, my father went to the Hebrew school in the 1930s and 1940s. And
Wow.
when the previous Lubavitch Rebbe visited Chicago in January, February 1942, my father was in the Hebrew school class that
Really?
went to
Isn't that
visit to see
incredible?
him at the Grey Mare Hotel.
Wow. Look at that. What a piece of history.
Yeah, yeah. So he used to talk about it, and he was, I think, 10 years old at the time. So it's
Wow.
not like he could tell me over everything that the
Right.
Rebbe said to them, but he remembered, and he remembered the basic message. So, so that this was very personal for me. I was very
Right.
proud my kids were there, living there, and so involved in the community. The community was, I have to say, was remarkable in how
Mm,
in supporting the family. So our um, after after our son-in-law passed, I was talking to Rabbi Hertz, and he's been involved every step of the way.
mm,
He and his staff. So I was talking to him about the uh, what to write on the monument, and
mm,
one of the things that I suggested was that our son-in-law was dedicated to the Lubavitcher Rebbe's agenda in
mm,
general, and Rabbi Hertz got, if I can use the word, upset, not angry, but
mm,
his voice rose, and this affected him very deeply too. Our son-in-law's passing,
mm,
and he said, "No, no, It's not what he did." He said, "If he was devoted to the Rebbe's agenda, that means that he stood at a mitzvah booth or a tefillin booth every Sunday for a few hours. But that wasn't what Dover did." He said he was always thinking of the community. He was thinking what we should
mm,
do for the community, how we can grow the community. It was a whole different thing. He took a leadership role. We were constantly consulting with him. My son-in-law, who's an assistant rabbi in the show, was worked with him hand in hand to see what to
mm.
do in the show. And I realized then, like what uh what a difference he made. They said that when he
Wow.
finished yeshiva and came back to the community, wasn't married yet. He was single. He started getting things happening. He was he lit a fire under
Mm,
people to get them
mm.
involved.
Wow.
One of the stories that I heard is that there was a single mother with small children who moved into the community. She was divorced, and the community helped her, and she had a small apartment for herself and her kids. And our son-in-law found out that she was parking on the street, and it means you have to find a space. And if there's
Mm.
snow, um,
You're stuck. Yeah. Right.
yeah, you're stuck. You're
Hard.
carrying a small baby, climbing over the snowbank. And so he said to the landlord, "Do you have a parking space?" And the landlord said, "Well, there was space in the back of the house, and perhaps it was a garage." So our son-in-law said, I'll pay to rent the space too."
Mm,
And the landlord gave him the price, which was higher than our son-in-law was expecting, but he took on to pay for the monthly rent
wow.
for the parking space as well, and it was just something as a matter of fact. So, and our son-in-law was the type. He charted his own course. He just
Mm,
went full speed ahead. Our daughter does everything by the textbook. So
That's
so
an
he would
interesting pair.
yeah, he would come home and tell her that I just committed to XYZ, whatever it was. She probably rolled her eyes, and then she was the one who had said about make sure that it got paid. So
Wow.
they balanced each other very, very well, and they, you know, fed off each other. They listened and helped each other think things through.
Wow. Wow. Now, I understand that your daughter now lives with you. She moved to to where you are, to Massachusetts, and lives with you and your wife?
Yeah. So during I do want to mention again how much the community was supportive there. She had very close
Amazing
friends.
community.
They came
Yeah.
to visit a lot. All the food was delivered. The breakfast was delivered. The um, dinners were brought for months and months.
Hmm.
And um, I mentioned before all the recycling in the boxes. So
Right.
some of that was the food deliveries.
Wow.
And
Wow.
uh,
It's a very special community.
yeah, I was really impressed with that. So we were really grateful. So during Shiva, towards the end of Shiva, we flew with our daughter home and the two kids. Um, the baby was 7 months old when our son-in-law
Mm,
passed, and the boy had just turned 3. He had his first haircut, his Upshernish, um, about a month before our son-in-law passed.
mhm.
Um,
Wow.
so she came back with us and sat one day of Shiva in our house, and we asked people not to come except for our daughter's close friends. That's what she wanted.
Mhm. Mhm.
So and she's been living with us since then. Thank God we have room. We went from empty nesters to having a daughter and two grandchildren.
Wow.
Um,
And how's that been like for you? I mean, sometimes, like, it's an interesting dynamic, an adult child moving back in.
So as I mentioned, our daughter is very close with us, especially with my wife. So
Mhm.
we see eye to eye, and we want to do whatever we can for her and
Mhm.
for the grandchildren. So um, if I can give a few anecdotes,
Sure.
the 3-year-old, a lot of he'll wake up and come into our bedroom either before we wake up or as we're waking up, getting dressed, and um, and he's ready to start the day. Um, one of the things that my wife and I do for about 10 years, and you ask about support and how we feel, how we deal with it. My wife and I walk every morning for about 35 minutes. We leave about
Amazing.
6 a.m.
Wow.
and uh, and most of the year it's dark, pitch black. We leave at
Mhm.
6 a.m. and we get home a little after 6:35. This is close to 2 miles, and
That's terrific.
it's just a time when it's a time for us to just to talk. Most of the time, one of us is talking, the other one's listening, and this is also a time that we use. We
I'm
try
not gonna ask who's the talking the most.
either of us. She might
Okay.
talk a little more,
Right, right.
but the other one. One of the things is to be able to listen and not
Mhm.
interrupt, and
Mhm.
not and let the other person finish their own sentences and finish their thoughts. So this is may help get us support each other very much. As I mentioned, that I try to be the sunshine in people's days, so we don't complain a lot to other people,
Wow.
but this is our time to complain.
To each other.
We vent to each other. Yeah, sometimes it can be pitch black, and we'll actually turn around to make sure that no one's walking or
Oh,
running
wow.
that we know
Wow.
behind us.
So this is like the 30 minutes of the day to vent,
Yeah, yeah, to
and that
share
enables you, yes, to be the sunshine afterwards because 'cause you've already, whatever complaints you have,
and to
you've
know that we
already
have each
shared.
other's support.
Right. Wow.
So so our grandson comes, if he's out awake, we'll say, "We're going to walk now. Do you want to walk with us?" And most of the time he says yes. So it's not
Mm,
every single day. It could be a few times a week. but
Hmm.
we'll wrap him in a blanket in his pajamas, put him in a blanket in the stroller, and do our walk. The only thing is now sometimes we do have to resort to spelling or speaking in Hebrew
Right.
because he's got ears.
Right. Right.
So so that's it's a very nice experience, and and people do see us walking. We'll get comments from people afterwards who drive by. We're driving at 6:15 a.m. and they'll say, "Oh, we saw you walking. We saw you walking with your grandson."
Mm.
And
Wow. So
sometimes
that's,
sometimes both kids in the double stroller.
oh, wow. So these are like how these little changes come about, changes in your life, the empty nesters to now a full nest.
Yes, yes,
Yeah.
and enjoying being Bubby and Zadie and trying to be the best we can.
Hmm.
We have there's I was I went to visit someone um, after our son-in-law passed away. I was trying to catch up on the visits that I do, and I should say a lot of what we do in our all of of our team of shluchim here, we do pastoral visits. It's just visiting people just to say hi. Drop in if they put on tefillin, that's fine. If not, then it's just to check in and talk to them. So
Mm.
there's a supporter of the school that I visit. Um, Middle-aged woman. She owns her business, and she's had her issues. So she appreciates that I visit and I listen, and she also knows my daughter, so
Mm.
she understands. And said to her that now our grandchildren are living with us, and she said, "Oh, that's so nice."
Mm.
And I was just thinking, our son-in-law passed away. What do you think? It's so nice.
Mm.
And I didn't
Mm.
know what to say, and I was looking at her, and she looked at me and she said, "You know, I don't know my grandchildren. My son cut me off 10 years ago."
Oh,
And
wow.
I was thinking to
Wow.
myself, my gosh, you're right. And I knew this.
Right.
There's something called a counterfact, and that is that you look to see what didn't happen. So you can have a counterfact and say, you know what, something much better could have happened.
Mm.
And why did this have to happen? Or you could say something much worse could have happened.
Mm.
And thank God that we have this close relationship with our daughter that we're able to support her in this way and have the experience of being Bubby and Zadie with her
Mm.
grandchildren.
Right. Is that how you look at the situation? Like, is that what you try to do in life in general, to look at that counter effect?
Um, sometimes, sometimes
Yeah.
that's what it is.
Is that a tool to cope?
It absolutely is a tool. Thinking of which counterfact do you do you consider?
Mhm.
Something else is that we are leaders in the community, uh, and I do talk to people. There's one of the people that I visit calls me his spiritual therapist.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, I did help him through some very difficult times, and a lot of it was just by listening and affirming him, validating him. He needed that in a really strong way, and so t talking to people and teaching people, um, understanding that God runs the world,
Mm.
and we have so much, only so much control.
Mm.
One of the things, and I tell this to other people, I'm like, so do I, how much do I feel that? And here you're forced to face it.
So how is it facing that? Like, facing the talk that you talk, the things that in theory, God runs the world, that everything is for the good, but how do you feel it when you're going through something so difficult?
Um, I think you don't have much choice, at least
Mm.
in what's the alternative? At least in this instance, I know for that this is how things are. We
Mm.
have things that we call segulas that if you do this, it hopefully will influence and something will happen. I don't know how to translate segula. Um, for
Right.
example, for example, if the entire Tillim is said for X number of days, And so people divide up the Book of Psalms, the Tillim, and we did that for a year or more. Though that
Mm.
the entire book was divided up. I had the chapters that I said every day, and people in our extended family said every day, um, and that's supposed to make a difference. There was saying the prayer of Nishmas every day. My daughter and I said that, I think, for 90 days. You have all these different things that you do, and you tell people, and at the end of the day, you only have so much control.
Mm. And does that, how do you accept that? Do you ever question? Do you ever, get upset about it? Or you just have this counter effect and this positive sunshine attitude? Like, how do you deal with that? That it didn't work out how you thought it would or you thought it should?
I'd say like 90% I accept it.
Mm.
When things were rough, it was around the holiday of Yotis Kislev, and we have a song that we sing, and it ends Vani Yeftach Bach, that I place my trust in you. And I remember saying like, how I'm singing this, but what's how can I say that? And then my wife made the same comment to me that
Mm.
she was also having trouble
Right.
with that. Um, but what's the choice? People don't, life does go on. People don't shut down. People don't stop um, going to going out to eat. People don't stop doing the things they enjoy, with reading books, going to movies. People do things. Like, why should belief in God be any different
Mm.
than these other life activities? So I
As a rabbi, is there any like teaching that you kind of pull out of your backpack that you rely on that to get you through these hard times?
um, there's a short story that I'd like to share.
Sure.
If if you remember, the wife of the Lubavitch Rebbe passed away in 1988, at the beginning of 1988, and many people came, thousands of people came through the house of the Rebbe to offer comfort. And when the Shiva was over on the seventh day, the Rebbe handed out dollars to everyone. There was a line that went for 3, 4 hours, maybe more, where the
Mm.
Rebbe handed out dollars. And I didn't think it at the time, but what occurred to me later, this is the way of the Rebbe giving back to all the people who had come to offer comfort, that he was
Mm.
saying thank you. So at the end of the Shiva for our son-in-law, I also, as a rabbi, leader in the community, I also wanted to share something with everyone. I shared the following story. This story was told by Yigal Klein. Yigal Klein was a uh, tour guide's tour guide
Mm.
in Israel, and I had him on my first trip to Israel for 2 weeks as a tour guide. I didn't hear the story directly from him, but I heard from someone else who also had him as a guide. Yigal Klein lived in Kiryat Arba. He loved the land of Israel, as many tour guides do, and he traveled throughout Israel, including throughout the Sinai Desert. He had uh, he had an idea that Israel would one day give the Sinai back to Egypt, and so he decided to take advantage, and he traveled throughout.
Mm.
One of the things that he did, he went to Sharm el Sheikh, and there's an underwater observatory there, um, and there's a coral reef you can go down. And apparently, he was fascinated by it, all the colors of the fish, and he was close friends with an artist who lived in Hebron named Baruch Nachshon, a Lubavitcher Chassid.
Mhm.
And obviously, as an artist, Baruch Nachshon had a very artistic, creative side to him. And Yigal tried to convince Baruch Nachshon, the artist, to come to Sharm el Sheikh with him to see the underwater, the coral reef, the observatory, or they would go down with oxygen, perhaps. And Baruch Nachshon wasn't interested, and kept rejecting the offer until finally one day convinced him. So they went down, and Baruch Nachshon went underwater, and he stayed. He watched the fish, um, all the colors and different kinds of fish, and he waited as long as he could, um, with based on his oxygen tank, until he finally came back to the surface. And he was lost in thought.
Mm.
On the way back, up north, Yigal Klein said to him, Baruch, he said, I don't understand. For all this time, you didn't want to come down, and now you didn't want to leave. So Baruch Nachshon said, when I was there under the water, watching the fish, I thought about their world, and I thought that the fish, the entire universe of the fish, is here beneath the surface of the water. They live they breathe underwater. They cannot live with oxygen
Mm.
up above the surface. And if you were to tell if one fish was to have this idea that there is land, there are people who live outside the water, and they're able to live and breathe without living in the water. There are trees, buildings, roads, cars, land animals.
Mm.
There are stars, an entire universe. That fish would be sent to the psychiatrist, would be sent to the loony bin for fish.
Right.
And he said, we live in our world in a physical existence, and we have no idea of what is happening spiritually. We have no
Mm.
idea of the process of creation, of the of how things work the way they do, why things happen, of of God's plan for the details in our lives. He says we have no clue. We are like fish that live underwater.
Mm.
And I taught this in a class, and I actually called Rabbi Nachshon one Friday in July many years ago, asking him to verify the story and asking if it was okay to share.
Mm.
And he said yes. He made one correction. I thought the story had happened in Eilat. He said it happened in Sharm el-Sheikh. But other
Mm.
than that, Baruch Hashem, he verified. So I shared this story with my community, with my WhatsApp list, when we finished the Shiva. And to me, that story um, is something that helps carry me through.
You live with that. That we just don't understand. There's certain things that we can't fathom, and we don't get it.
Yeah, yeah,
We live small lives,
right.
the little ocean lives, the fish in the
Yes, our
ocean,
perspective is very, very limited.
limited. Right. Wow. Is there, do you show up differently for others now that you've gone through what you've gone through? Do you see it differently?
Um, I try to. I try to. Now, when I see the story, unfortunately, someone's sick or someone passed, I try I try to identify with that and to feel it.
Mm. Wow.
As time goes on, things do get better.
Mhm.
There's a hole in our heart that will never be repaired.
Mhm.
And once in a
Right.
while, we have a tough moment. I can speak for myself. I'm sure for my daughter certainly is dealing with it,
Mhm.
and she's heroic. She's doing a great job. She does work. She takes care of her kids. Um, but it's but as time, I think we are dealing with it better. And I try to think of that when I hear about other people having
And
these situations.
wow. And is there something that you learned that we could learn, like of what someone how someone can support others who are going through something like this?
I'm going to say two things. Thank you. For one thing, is to when speaking to to the people who have passed, to the sorry, to the people who are grieving is
mm,
to talk about the person who passed away.
mm,
I say this because there were a few people who came in and or came to us and started talking about a tragedy. There's such little
mm,
kids,
mm,
and that's not what you want to hear.
mm,
I try to remember that to keep in mind for myself that to speak about the person who passed away. If you don't know anything, you can say, well, I read an article online about them. I read the obituary. They seem like such an interesting person. Or you can say, tell me, I didn't know
mm,
your mother or father. Please tell me about them.
mm,
The second thing that's very that uh, that I would suggest is a lot of people come over to offer comfort and to express some sort of support, and they'll say, "What can I do to help you? Is there anything I can do? Give me a call." And that puts the onus on the
mm,
person who is on who's mourning,
mm,
and it would be much more practical and helpful to actually do something. So when we came back home, there's someone I don't know too well, but he lost his wife at a in middle age, relatively young, and he said, "I want to bring over salmon." And so I told him what to buy. I told him about to look for a kosher symbol, and he brought over a few trays of salmon for us.
mm,
Um, the other things, other examples are just to bring food or say, is it okay to bring this? Um, call, text, a message, call. Don't say, "Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't call sooner," or "I was thinking
mm,
of you, but I didn't call." Just do. And the other
mm,
things that people can do are to send a gift card for Walmart or Amazon.
mm,
Um, call up and say, "I'd like to take you out. Would
mm,
you be willing to just go out for coffee with me?" Um, or to say to call them and say, "I'd like to make a play date for our kids."
mm,
So
mm.
to be proactive, and some people I know are better at thinking of these ideas than
Right. No,
others.
this is very helpful. You gave some really great practical tips for people to know.
And
Like
those,
really offer something practical. Don't just like it's easier just to say whatever you need, I'm there for it, but
yes,
you're putting the onus of responsibility on the other person who is already so overwhelmed with so much.
yes, these are my daughter's suggestions. When we
Mhm.
were in Chicago, and there were Fridays that people would bring over challah. It's a wonderful idea to bring
Mm.
over challah. We would have 5 challah on one Friday. It's like we would have to
Right.
buy a freezer just to
Right.
store all the challah. It wasn't how much can one person eat? So
Right.
uh so that and then people also brought toys to the kids for
Mm.
the kids, and that got overwhelming too. Our daughter
Mhm.
was saying, "I can't deal with another toy." He
Really?
he had toys from his parents. He just had his upsterness. He just had his first haircut, and then people would bring toys. Uh, so that was also. I mean, the gesture is appreciated, but then and she probably knew that she'd be leaving soon, so
Right.
that was
Right.
also caused
She'd have to
difficulty.
take it all.
Our
Sure.
our our grandson had a tricycle that he rode around the house in Chicago, and he was very fond of it. So a couple days before, during the Shiva, my wife went online and ordered an identical tricycle for the house.
Mm.
So
Mm.
as soon as we came back to Massachusetts, we had the same tricycle waiting for him here that he was
Mm.
able to ride.
Mhm. Mhm. So he had that sense of familiarity and yeah, what his
Yes,
favorite yeah.
yeah, his
Wow.
favorite, that one of his favorite toys.
Wow. What do you think your grandchildren need now the most?
Um, stable, stability,
Mhm.
and love and attention.
Mhm.
Um, Unfortunately, I've seen other families go through things like this. Um, some of them have handled it well, and unfortunately, others haven't. even years later, that the effects of it have not come around, even changed even years later.
mm,
And so my wife and I are committed to supporting our daughter and the grandchildren, to give them a stable, happy home.
wow, beautiful.
People ask about our grandson. People know that he's cognitively aware very
Hmm.
strongly. So
Hmm.
he remembers his father. Our daughter, I mentioned that she follows the textbook, so she ordered one or two books um, before our son-in-law passed away, um, about saying goodbye, how to say goodbye. I didn't have the heart to read it, but after our son-in-law passed, she read it to her grandson. I think you read it once or twice and you put it away.
Oh, wow.
So
Wow.
he understands what happened. He doesn't understand all the ramifications. His father won't be at his bar mitzvah. His father won't be at his chuppah. Um, he he misses his father. Every once in a while, he asks if he can call him or
Mm,
uh, or something like that. But
mm,
they're both, thank God, they're both happy kids, and they bring us a lot of comfort.
mm,
They make us laugh and smile.
mm. They expose the sunshine in you, being the
Thank
sunshine
you.
to the world. Wow.
Thank
Wow.
you. Thank you. Yeah,
Wow.
we hope. And uh,
Yeah.
and they also, I see in my grandson, I see his father when in some things
Mm,
that he does, just um, is not afraid to talk to adults. I
mm.
think our son-in-law was very, in many ways, bold and not afraid of risks, not afraid of speaking to people. Um, I tell my daughter, I say that he takes after his father.
Wow. Wow. Rabbi Kosofsky, you gave us so much food for thought in this interview. We really appreciate that you joined us for this. Is there any final thought you'd like to share with people that you'd like them to know?
Um, I appreciate your having me on, and I look around and I see there really are a lot of people who have gone through loss and have dealt with grief, are dealing with grief, and I see them as they are my strength, and um, I just have so much respect and admiration for all the people who have continued on with life, and I imagine that inside they're dealing with it. It's not easy, but just the fact to be able to get up in the morning and go out and go to work or do whatever it is um, they're I look to them for support,
Mm.
and 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 I've just a lot of respect for all these people. Thank you.
Wow. Thank you. Thank you so much. May Hashem give you and your whole family the comfort that you need to go on, to continue to being the inspiration and the joy and the sunshine that you all are.
Thank you very much.
Wow. What an honest conversation about a very heavy topic. And no, you know, shining any light on it, but just really honestly sharing with us what he has gone through. I felt that Rabbi Kosofsky gave us so much introspection on the topic, a lot of ideas on it, a lot of practical tips. I really loved what he said about how we can handle when you are seeing someone going through something difficult, the practical things that he suggested, that you show up for them, that you help them with. I was intrigued with how he said, even for his own daughter, when her husband was sick, he did not give suggestions about what she should do or even sermonize about different ideas, but it was very much about being there, showing up, being there practically, helping in any way that you can in a very practical way. And I thought that was a really important takeaway message from this. I loved what he said about the story of the fish and the fish in the ocean from Baruch Nachshon, and how we're really seeing so small of a picture, just the view from the ocean, when there's a whole world out there, a whole spiritual world that we really don't understand, and that really is the answer to what we do, what we cannot understand. That is that our perspective is really so small. And I think that's an important perspective to take with us in any circumstance that we're going through. God forbid a terrible tragedy, but even in the small things that we go through in life, the small nuisances and the small, things that disappointments that we confront, the idea that we're seeing something very small and ultimately there's a far greater picture. And may that far greater picture actually come true, and may we see it, and may we see the good very, very soon, and why all these tragedies are really a prelude to something far, far better. If you enjoy watching these interviews, I hope you are subscribed to Chabad.org/extraordinary. And I'd love to hear what you thought of Rabbi Kosofsky's interview. I was intrigued by the fact that he likes to bring sunshine to people, and he continues to bring that sunshine to people. And even amidst the difficulty that he's gone through, he continues to persevere. And that as well is a message for all of us. Thank you so much for watching. You can find us as well on YouTube and all podcast platforms. Give us a like there, drop us a comment. We love to read and hear from you. Thank you so much for watching and for being a part of this extraordinary community.